The San Francisco Bay Area is the home of Alcatraz and the Golden Gate. It's a place where cars actually drive themselves. And it's also a place where both Pong and the fortune cookie had their humble beginnings. I'm here to meet with some of the industry's most influential people from some of the most innovative game companies in the world. We're going to talk about everything from gaming culture to the art and science of developing games to the infrastructure that ties it all together for players and developers alike. My name is Nelson Rodriguez. I work for Akamai, but I live for games. I play them, I write about them, I travel the world to talk to the people who make them. My mission is to help you deliver the most awesome game. I've been in the games industry for a really long time, and I'm still always curious to know, what are other people in the industry thinking? Why are they in this space at all, and what's driving them? What was the first game that you played, or the first game that you fell in love with, that has had an impact on how you think about games?
Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis.
Pitfall, I remember specifically with the Atari joystick.
I got obsessed with this game called Rogue. That was just the barest bones graphics in those days.
The game that probably took my life away was Counter-Strike. It never gets boring to me. Playing bots is one thing, but playing other people who also are trying to do their best to get me is kind of the biggest thrill out there.
All of us got into this industry because we were gamers. I don't know anyone that sticks in this industry that wasn't gaming when they were this big.
My generation was the first generation where games were a natural part of our lives. We were exposed to arcade machines, and then we had the first home console, and then the multiplayer era emerged where you could play with somebody across town or across the world. Each of these phases, what's important about them is that you were playing in a different place with a different feeling.
It was a neighborhood thing, so it's like, hey, let's go to Ryan's and call on the phone, can we show up, can we play? And it's funny because you think back, it's like that's today so important, like games being social.
People playing against the computer is one thing, but I think people always enjoy people playing people because of the human story interest about that. Like, I can connect with this player, I don't connect with the bot 382. Now you're able to foster gameplay from different parts of the country. It expanded our reach, it expanded our ability to play. And so that was the next big step, is online gaming.
Games are so dependent on technology in a way that almost no other space is. With games, the technology is everything. It's the whole experience. From the very first moment that I'm interacting with it to the very last, everything is tech.
Games are just another factor that kind of pushes tech forward. We're getting better at telling stories. Graphics obviously are massively, massively improved.
One of the best things that's happened to the gaming industry is that it's become more mainstream. The acceptance of gaming, it's just become so broad, and a lot of that has to do with the technology and the ability to play.
A decade ago, it was a $30 billion business. Now it's a $100 billion business, and much larger than combining the box office for movies and the music industry. There's no more fun industry to either cover or be a part of.
Whether you're talking to a veteran of the games industry who's been cranking out hits for 40 years, or a young CEO who's trying to disrupt the industry in exciting ways, the one thing that keeps coming across is passion. Every industry requires commitment and skill if you want to be successful, but in games, it feels like you also have to love it. You have to love the games, you have to love the players, and you have to pour that love into development.
Game development is a fantastic job, I love it, but it's hard work making games.
For me, even though I've done every kind of game under the sun and had the good luck to invent a couple of gaming genres, they've always been about the same three things. Same table, three legs: socialization, storytelling, and mechanics that support the other two legs. Understanding who your audience is critical. You can't design something for everyone. It's an impossible task, and what it really means is design something for no one. The tighter you can define your audience, the better you can design for them. Find a niche audience that you're passionate about that hasn't had a game made for them. If that's dental floss, then make the greatest dental floss game and promote it to the people who are passionate about dental floss.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, exactly, I know.
Everybody involved in developing a game is under a lot of pressure, particularly when you consider that 95% of players will leave a game within the first 30 days, and for many games, the business model depends on them staying.
Making a game is all about making choices and making the right trade-offs. We want to put players in that flow zone where they're doing something meaningful for them. The challenge is not too easy but not too hard, and they have to make some effort to achieve something. If everything is new, then it's very complicated because the brain loves novelty, but if it's too new, it's getting overwhelming and it can be a bit jarring.
The huge part of multiplayer gaming is making sure that it's fair. There's always the issue of where's the server located in comparison to all the clients, and all of that relies on just various pieces of tech.
When you're in a virtual world and you can't figure out the puzzle to like get to the next level, people just take off their headset. In VR, you can see where people are looking at least, so you know, like based on that feedback, don't put the key there. Put it here because 90% of your people are looking this way.
Gaming has a unique opportunity that so far Hollywood doesn't have, which is you get to see all the interactions that the consumer has with the content. It's not necessarily that gaming needs to listen to its players more than other spaces. It's just that we have the opportunity to.
Back in the old days when it was like disc in box goes to Walmart or GameStop or whatever, we just had no idea if players would like it. That's not the world we live in anymore. Talking to our players is something we can do.
With the social media and YouTubers and people on Twitch, we have a greater access to the community and it's way easier for them to talk to us. Their voice is the most important.
As a researcher, I have to say like, okay, there's what I think, there's what the player thinks. I'm one person, I'm one opinion. My dev teams should not listen to just my opinion, they should listen to my data because my data is built up of a wide variety of player opinions. Our motto is player first. To give you an example, when a player says like, something's overpowered, people will be loudly screaming about how overpowered something is, and that's something we want to address. We'll look at the data, okay? Is this character actually overpowered? Then we look at why are the players feeling it's overpowered. Maybe that guy just has a really cool animation, and when you die to him, it feels like you just got blown away. Maybe we just make that animation a little bit simpler. We care that the player feels that way. If you feel bad about something, we want to fix that.
We need to patch because if we find a problem and the people are actually blocked in a section of the game, we cannot just let that be.
We've moved to this culture of like things being a service. So once you launch something, now it's the live operations. You gotta produce new content.
We have a game out right now, Paragon. Every week it gets updated. And so we're just constantly monitoring how our little experiments are going in the community, and we're actively involved with that community, talking to them, listening to them to figure out what features they want in the future. In the world of free-to-play, a game is never really done.
Every industry in the world has been completely revolutionized by technology, but gaming was born in tech. Technology and infrastructure is a part of every single strand of our DNA, which means that it's not just some middleman that is trying to enable a transaction. For gaming, infrastructure is vital.
Infrastructure is the most important thing, right? Like if your players can't connect to your game, you lose your players, you lose your revenue, you lose, your brand that you've worked so hard to establish. The term that people use for it sometimes is a backbone. And it really is. Like you don't notice it when it's doing its job correctly, but as soon as it's missing, like we're just blobs on the floor.
Right. What's important when you're building out infrastructure for games?
Scale, obviously. Speed, so the ability to build something quickly, to adapt quickly. How fast can you get into a match? That could be just a lobby server, and so how much do we build that out? Think about all these pieces within the game that a lot of players don't see, but underneath it, we're supplying that. The funnel, so to speak, from a user registering or downloading and actually getting into the game is very complex. Time is money, so when users aren't in the game and they aren't playing, you're losing money, you're potentially losing users and players.
The infrastructure supporting 10 players in a network environment is much different than supporting, say, 50 million monthly users. Infrastructure is really core to that. So if you build a scalable infrastructure that's fault tolerant, it's a lot easier than just kind of hoping it works.
Having been a part of really scrappy teams, I can totally understand why you would hope that you've got the right infrastructure and believe that you can improve your infrastructure later. It's just very dangerous, right? Because within the first few days of launch, if players can't get in and the lingering impression was that they couldn't play, that can be really damaging.
You'd be surprised when people are so caught up in the day-to-day operations and the functions of holding things up, they don't think about how to prevent someone from coming in and knocking it down.
For us, the challenge has always been when you're working with development teams and they're building a game, how the infrastructure is set up when they're developing it, and then once they hand it over, how we publish it, and is there a match for that?
If games aren't designed with security in mind when you're actually creating them, it's sometimes too late to just slap security on at the end and call it a day, because if it's architectured in not a very safe way, adding a couple pieces of security on the edge aren't going to save you.
The video game industry is the single most attacked industry. I think there are a lot of reasons. I think that there's a culture overlap, and gaming is so dependent on a stable network and stable servers that it's really easy to disrupt. It's just an easy target. I think game publishers need to have a plan for long-term security.
The people you attract into a game are people who like to play with things, and hacking is literally just playing with the system and finding ways in, so the crowd of hackers tends to overlap pretty well with the crowd of gamers you have out there in the world.
We think about security a lot. We, in fact, do internal auditing a lot, so we're trying to hack our own systems to see if there's any flaws, because no one wants to be in the news.
We're getting to a point where waiting is going to feel really old-fashioned. There's still an opportunity in many businesses, and certainly in gaming, to make the experience better and easier. It's our job within this industry to make it possible for any game to be playable by anyone, anywhere, as soon as they want to play it.
Waiting for things to happen is never good. Attention span is measured somewhere around 8 seconds. If you take more than 8 seconds to start something up, you're starting to get into trouble. There's friction. The good thing I noticed about some of these games, like say Mass Effect, the series, it was like a joke at first that you would go into the elevator and you'd wait for a couple minutes just listening to music play, right? And it's like, they thought that was maybe a clever way to help people deal with the pain of loading a new level. But now it can move around your entire ship and never see a loading screen.
There are a lot of games out now where you start downloading and it'll load and start playing.
Yeah.
And so you're playing through that first part of the experience while the rest of the game is actually streaming into the background.
Where do you feel infrastructure's headed in terms of the investment, in terms of innovation?
I think all positive directions, everything being cloud-based is helping. I know there's a lot of people that are aspiring to be kind of the Netflix of gaming, and I think we'll get there. These generations of players are very much the now generation. They need content immediately. We did go from movie companies shipping us DVDs to now just 2 button clicks on your remote and you're watching a movie. There's no doubt in my mind that in a short period of time that will be the same for video games.
If you look at gaming culture, something special about it is how global it is, and it has been forever. I grew up playing Japanese games, and there are kids in Japan playing games that are developed in Ukraine, and there's really no borders. In many ways, gaming requires a level of expertise in terms of technical infrastructure that many other industries don't need. Games are highly technical products that involve complicated networking, that involve large files, and you've got players all over the world on many different devices, and that's just not easy to deliver to. You need a partner who can support that level of scale. That's just the practical reality. Successful games come in all shapes and sizes. They come from teams who are passionate about the culture of games. They come from different development processes, but their infrastructure can be a stable foundation for helping you deliver the most awesome game.